What is going on, everybody? Welcome back in to Celtics Talk Weekly Post Game Show. I am your host, Rob Tan. Joined with me are all my lovely co-hosts, Franco, David, Seamus, Zarlingo. Guys, welcome in. Celtics win a big time game at home, 124-97. They did it. 23 was the score that everyone was watching against Chicago for the Celtics to punch their ticket into the brand new in-season tournament. The Celtics did need the Brooklyn Nets to win. However, they could not win by more than 16 points. That one, we were watching that in here before the show started. That one was a little sweat. However, Brooklyn, first time I think a Celtics fan will ever say, go Nets. But I'll tell you what, guys, the Nets clutched up big time for the Celtics yet again. It feels like Brooklyn's always gifting Boston something. However, again, Boston, big win. They looked phenomenal at home. They remain undefeated at home, 8-0 on the season. They advanced to 14-4, top of the league still. Guys, your initial thoughts, takeaways. Franco, you start us off.
They started off the game 23-0. That's how the game started, and that's how they finished it. It was an all-around great win for the team. Started off with a nice 69 points to come out of the first half. Jaylen Brown put on a performance tonight. He was the star player, took control of the game, and I know Chicago has been a very struggling team, most likely a team that's going to make some adjustments at the trade deadline, be a seller at the trade deadline, but there's something on the line that this team can accomplish a goal. If 23 points, a 23-point win is nothing to go into being like, all right, let's just simply blow out this NBA team that is trying to beat us right now. And Chicago put up a fight up until the last buzzer, shooting at the buzzer, trying to be that obnoxious team, trying to snub us from our play-in tournament, even though that they were down. But Celtics kept on the pressure going, kept all the key players in the game, and truly made me a fan of the in-season tournament.
Yeah, the Celtics, we didn't expect it coming into this game. However, the Boston Celtics are advancing into the in-season tournament bracket. Can you guys believe it? I mean, coming into this game, we were a minus 22 to the Orlando Magic and needed the Brooklyn Nets to beat the Toronto Raptors by a score of 8 less than we beat the Chicago Bulls back here. The Celtics do it. They beat it. They beat the Chicago Bulls by 27. The Nets end up beating the Raptors, and it's a three-way tie, 3-1, 3-1, 3-1, as we take a look here at the East Group standings up on the screen. The Celtics coming away with the East Group C robbery. Thank you to the awful Chicago Bulls. The awful.
Yeah, look
Chicago
at that.
Bulls.
0-4
minus
anything.
They couldn't do anything at this point. Like look 0-4 in the tournament. Their season record is abysmal as is, and they're a minus 48. And these are just random games throughout the season. The Bulls come up to Boston and lose by 27. The Boston Celtics completely lost their point differential from the first two games against the Raptors, against the Nets. When they traveled down to Orlando, they were a minus 17 in Orlando after that game, after being a plus 17. They go to a point differential of 0. And tonight they end with a point differential of plus 27. This is not being talked about enough. This team and other teams, I will mind you too, this Celtics team and other teams definitely care about this in-season tournament. I don't care what any of these guys say. We've seen all the interviews, Porzingis, Holiday, they were interviewed in the first half and at halftime, and they were both asked, are you guys talking about this point differential thing? And they were kind of nonchalant about it, going, yeah, sort of, not really, kind of. It's in the back of our minds. But clearly, clearly they're going after it, and other teams too, looking around the scoreboard tonight, they're clearly going after it and all of these point differential scenarios to get into the in-season tournament. And the Celtics, this is a resilient game. This is a game that we want to see, because coming into tonight, we kind of envision the Celtics as, well, they're a veteran team. This in-season tournament might be meant for more young teams like the Pacers, like the Magic, but no, I want to see the Celtics be competitive. I want to see them stay competitive amidst a stretch in which they are a veteran team going for the title. If you're going to go for the title, stay competitive, be competitive. That's how they're going to win the title at the end of the season, doing all the little things throughout the year. And I know tonight they could have rested their guys, and people are going to argue that point, but the competitive edge, just the fact of competing, the
Right.
Celtics did that tonight in this tournament. And I am so glad that they came out with this 27-point win and will now advance. And we don't have to see two just meaningless regular season games. We're going to see the in-season tournament court yet again.
Yeah, I mean, I will say earlier in the day, probably around noon, when I was just getting ready for this game, I was thinking in terms of how I wanted the Celtics to approach the game tonight is just, first and foremost, let's just win this. These are obviously wins that still count towards the season. But
Right.
probably right before the game started, honestly, it was like, dang, like it's going to suck if the Celtics aren't in the in-season tournament. I'm not going to lie. Like the first ever in-season tournament, a franchise as historic as the Celtics, like it's almost like they should be a part of it. So I'm glad we went full throttle for it. Happy we're in the tournament. And then just to give my general thoughts on the game too, I mean, this was just a great effort by the team tonight. Great job to stay undefeated on the parquet. We brought the intensity defensively. It was just, a typical Missoula ball game, as they say on Twitter, over 50% of our shots from deep. It wasn't perfect from start to finish. There was a bit of a stretch there from the end of the first half to the start of the third that, we were playing a little bit sloppy, but overall, just a heck of an effort from the guys. I mean, Jaylen Brown putting together a 30-piece effort with some great playmaking. Drew Holiday hitting some threes in his return. Offense just looked great. Didn't have a single problem with any of the shots they took, to be honest. I mean, I just talked about how many threes we took, but it seemed like every single time down the floor we were getting a good shot. And Sam Hauser had another epic dunk, which it's just great to see the people off the bench too bring the energy, which we saw. We had 29 points off the bench. We definitely sold out in the end a little bit in terms of pushing guys to their limits to get this in-season tournament berth. But it was impressive to see us respond. And as we talked about before we went live, Rob, and what you said, it was great to see how this team responded when they were given something to play for. So just a fun night from the Garden. And credit to Adam Silver, in my opinion, for coming up with this, because this just makes these games that usually are meaningless in November just seem exciting. And just an overall fun one tonight.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. I thought Boston came in and played with energy. That's super important in these meaningless games against Chicago without the in-season tournament. I do think that the whole point differential brings an aspect to basketball that's not great. Some of the things we've seen with the late game scoring and the hack of Drummond, people are going to have different opinions on that. Personally speaking, I don't love that aspect added to basketball. I think it's fun for the fans. I love the tournament, though. I'm getting into it. I think Adam Silver was onto something here. I think these teams are going to kind of have this ego to them of saying, hold on, well, I don't want to lose this, right? I don't want to be the joker that doesn't make the tournament, or I don't want to be the team that, isn't hoisting the trophy or that's not going to Vegas. So I think it's a lot of fun. I think that Silver did a good job in that aspect. The point differential thing, I think, is a little weird. But however, in terms of tonight, in terms of how Boston played, I loved it from the start to the finish. I thought they played a solid game. And again, kind of what Franco was saying, we're talking about this before the show. I think it was really great to see Boston have to do something, right? There was a set goal and that they needed to accomplish, and to beat the Chicago Bulls by 23 points is all the only thing they can control. They couldn't control what happened to Brooklyn. And if Brooklyn did win by more than 16, then, it wouldn't have mattered. So I like to see Boston, how they came in and they said, listen, this is a game that kind of means something. There's a goal and there's something that they have to achieve, and they did that. So I think that's a positive sign because, come April when we're down 2-1 going onto the road, it's kind of the same feeling where it's like, listen, you got to do this. You have to go on the road and win a game. It's the same type of feeling. So again, I love that aspect. We're getting to kind of see some more meaningful basketball in a game on a Tuesday night on November 28th that we wouldn't have seen before. So I do think to start the season, I didn't really know how to assess these games. Were teams trying? Did teams want to be there? I thought it was interesting when Boston lost to Orlando. It's like, okay, how do I assess this game? And those Toronto and Brooklyn games, there was kind of like, okay, well, they kept it close. Was that Boston playing bad basketball, or was that Toronto and Brooklyn just giving us a run for the money? I didn't know how to assess, but I think now you understand teams want to be there. They want to compete and they want to hopefully get to Vegas and hoist that trophy. So overall, super happy. 8-0 on the parquet. Celtics are rolling 14-4, best record in the NBA. I mean, come on, what's not to love? And I'm loving this Jaylen Brown performance, guys. It feels like this guy is just elevating his game again. 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists for Mr. 304. I'm bringing that nickname back, JB. He had a phenomenal game. 6 assists, that stands out to me. He's the player of the game. That is awesome. When you're getting Jaylen Brown moving the basketball as well as he was tonight, guys, it is such a luxury to have that. Seamus, when you have Jaylen Brown moving the ball like he's moving the ball, what does it bring to the table for the Celtics? How does it elevate their game?
Well, for one, the Celtics offense is a lot more fluid when Jaylen Brown specifically is moving the ball, because if you look at the offense in its entirety, if you have both Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown playing heavy isolation, and we know that Jason Tatum typically takes more isolation attempts, or we at least want him to take more isolation attempts than Jaylen Brown. But if you look at those two guys, if they're both taking a hefty amount of isolation attempts, then it's not going to work out as better as one of those two guys playmaking more often than not. And I thought Jaylen Brown, the spots in which he scored in tonight were particularly efficient, and he was very aggressive going towards the rim and scoring too in transition. I thought he created a lot of easy buckets simply sprinting in transition and going hard to the rim. And we see a lot of guys in the league, a lot of stars, if they can just generate those easy buckets for themselves in the game, their point total can really take off. And I even believe too, Jaylen Brown's point total at the bottom was updated at the end of the game. He ended with 30 points. This is 28 at the bottom. So Jaylen Brown was fantastic tonight, super aggressive, super efficient. And we must add this in too. He only had 2 turnovers, and one of those came late in the fourth quarter, when you could argue that he maybe potentially, if you're one of those fans who don't like the in-season tournament, maybe you argue that he shouldn't have been playing because the Celtics were up 30. So the fact he only had 2 turnovers and one came super late in the game, you have to feel good about that for Jaylen Brown, because of the fact Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, those turnover numbers, we want to see those as low as possible. So great performance from Jaylen Brown tonight. I thought he set the tone and completely led the way for the Boston Celtics.
I think it's important to note that it's been up and down for JB. And again, I was listening to the Bill Simmons podcast, and he brought up a phenomenal point. And he said that if you look at history and you look at these teams that possess a bunch of talent that have succeeded in winning NBA championships, there's always sacrifice. I mean, you've seen it in Boston itself with the 08Cs. Ray Allen took a back seat. I mean, even Kevin Garnett, he was a 24, 25 point per game scorer, running the best, at the highest level at being an MVP. He kind of took a different angle at it, being the defensive anchor. And Ray Allen was a 27 point per game scorer. He was more than a catch and shoot guy. So you have to make sacrifices. And I think a question that people are beginning to ask, and what Bill Simmons was asking was, listen, can Jaylen Brown be a guy that's taking 19, 20 shots per game for the Boston Celtics, and the Celtics to succeed with this much talent at their disposal? Is that the best direction for the Celtics to go forward? Franco, do you think that it's sustainable for the Celtics and Jaylen Brown to be running the show through JB, because honestly, at times it's the ball's in JB's hands more than it's in Tatum's.
So Jaylen Brown is the captain of this team. He got paid $304 million to coincide with Jason Tatum. And they're both going to bring their own factors to this game, and it's going to flip and flop what it's going to be, whether it's on the scoring side or it's on the hustle side.
Right.
Jason Tatum tonight was almost a decoy out there, and he was taking high-efficiency shots from the mid-range and slashing into the paint when it was open to him. But with Jaylen Brown running the show tonight, he was highly efficient, and they were able to get the ball around to other players tonight. I mean, Derek White tonight had 14. The whole starting lineup had 14 to 16 points inside that, alongside Pritchard having 11. So the team had 10-point scores tonight. So it was a well spread out game. And when Jaylen Brown is at the head of the offense, it feels like everyone's getting a piece of the pie.
For sure. Someone that was out, missed a couple games, David, right? Drew Holiday. The dude, you almost forget. You saw the Celtics offense the past couple games. You're thinking to yourself, oh, gosh. Again, it's the Chicago Bulls, but, you're thinking to yourself, oh, gosh, is this going to go downhill? Is there coaching problems? Which we're not going to talk about that today because positive post-game show. But people are, we were forgetting. You're missing Drew Holiday. This guy's when Drew Holiday's on the injury report, that's a big loss. So, again, Holiday, 14 points, 9 assists, 8 rebounds, I believe. David, what does he bring? I'm sorry, 14.7 rebounds, 9 assists. What does Drew Holiday bring that is just simply so special to this team?
Great two-way player, and that's just putting it generally, but even tonight and what we've seen he's done this season is just being able to guard, as we were used to with Marcus Smart, guarding anyone from the 1 through 5 and doing it efficiently. Like if we want to go back to the Minnesota game, I thought he did a great job even in that loss of guarding Towns against Philly. He did a good job of guarding Embiid in one of those matchups, and then tonight he was assigned Williams a few times, and I thought he did a good job blocking him down there. And even when he's on a more favorable matchup against a guard, he's active with his hands all the time. It seems like he's like the Troy Polamalu in a way of the NBA, where it's like he's always right by where the ball is if it's clanking off the rim, and he's a rebound fiend. And then just offensively, he's just been great out of the pick and roll. I mean, him and Kristaps Porzingis have developed a great connection. I know KP's been out for a little bit, but he's great at turning a good look into a great look. And I said this, I think maybe in the last time it was on, where he does this a little bit too much more than I'd like, in the sense where he has a layup, but he's been passing it out to the 3. Right. I don't love it, but I get the thinking there. And that just speaks more to his playmaking, where he's like, oh, I have a good shot. Let's turn this into a great shot. And, tonight, I don't know if we can expect him every night to hit 4 threes like he did tonight, but coming off the injury, he looked great shooting wise. It's honestly a pleasure to have him. And when he's on, he's able to do a lot for us on both sides of the court and do it at an efficient level. Definitely.
I mean, it's just like the difference when this team, when one guy's out versus when everyone's in, is so different, because it's like, and again, that was the whole goal of this thing. It's different here, right? That's their motto. That's what this team's running by. And again, you can't get too high on the highs and you can't get too low on the lows during an 82 game season. However, it's nights like this that makes you appreciate Drew Holiday for how just good he is. If you were to watch that game, guys, it didn't feel like he had a 14.7 rebound, 9 assist effort. It was just, it comes so naturally. And I think that's something that is so new to the Celtics team, is that Marcus Smart, it didn't come naturally. When Smart was having a good game, it was like, oh my gosh, look at what Marcus Smart's doing tonight. It was, you realized it. It was never, Marcus Smart never walked into a quiet 14, 7, and 9. And that's no knock on Marcus. That's just not the player who he was. That's not what, he was brought into the league to do. And he's phenomenal at what he does. But Drew Holiday, it's just like, oh my God, this guy is just can really. And you talk about back seats like earlier. Drew Holiday's taking a back seat. I mean, he doesn't take a lot of shots. He does not demand the basketball, and he's find ways to impact winning. So I mean, Drew Holiday, was phenomenal. Seamus.
Oh, yes. And I'm fixing another typo here on the bottom of the screen because the Celtics didn't win by 10. They won by 27, guys. They won by 27, as you guys can see now on the bottom of the screen. Yes, Drew Holiday for the Celtics is so big. And I think, yeah, we do. I believe during the games in which him and or Derek White are out of the lineup, we do tend to forget how big these guys really are for the Celtics, and there's a reason why the Celtics felt comfortable and Brad Stevens in the front office felt comfortable coming into this season with a top 6 solidified group of guys and then letting 7, 8, 9 play out because of how good the top 6 are. And we talked about it, if one of those guys are out, it's going to be tough sledding for the Celtics, like it is, with Kristaps Porzingis out of the lineup. But I do believe out of the 6 players, if you're taking out a ball handler, say instead of a guy like Kristaps Porzingis, it's much harder to make up specifically offensively because of the lack of ball handling and options in which the Celtics could have if, say, White or Holiday are out of the lineup. Contrast to, say, Porzingis. When Porzingis is out of the lineup, you could insert guys like Horford and Kada and Luke Cornett. So Drew Holiday is so big for this team, along with Derek White, and you saw the impact tonight. He almost notched a triple-double on the night, and
you wouldn't notice it. You wouldn't even notice that.
I didn't. Yeah, I never felt like he was so boisterous in this game. It felt like he was aggressive and involved. But when you looked at the stat line at the end of the night, it was a lot more impressive than his performance really seemed. And 8 shots, that's kind of where we want to see Drew Holiday's shot number, maybe a couple more. But to take just 8 shots on the night and still have the same impact all around, that's what we want to see out of Drew Holiday. And being in the lineup just for the Celtics tonight and healthy, we want to see that more often moving forward out of Holiday. He had an ankle sprain supposedly this past week. Didn't seem all that serious considering the fact he only missed a game, didn't miss too much time. But we'll have to monitor, see how many games he ends up being either questionable for or misses moving forward, if that ankle is even an issue or if they were just using that simply for rest. But seeing his stat line where it was tonight and his impact on the game, I would say he looked pretty healthy.
I think that something that just again another stat, Al Horford. I want to talk about Al Horford, and there's so many guys I just want to talk. I could say a positive thing about every single person who stepped into the court tonight. But Al Horford needs to be one that gets talked about a lot. This guy, and I said this in the Philly game, where when he starts, and you saw it against Atlanta, when he starts, it looks like he's 34-year-old Al Horford, who we brought, or 32-year-old Al Horford, who we brought into the Celtics back in 2016 to play with IT. He's playing at that level when he starts. And I think it's because of that routine. It's the routine he's known for 16 years of his career. I mean, it's such a difference maker. And seeing this Al Horford playing the amount of minutes that this Al Horford is playing gets me so excited for April. For Al to only have to play 25 minutes a game, and for when KP goes down, to have your next backup big man come in, have 16 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals in 3 blocks. That is your backup big man, guys. I mean, let's talk about that luxury in Al Horford. I mean, because that's not something that can just get looked over. I mean, that's a stat line that you might not even see Kristaps Porzingis put up through 82 games. That's how talented and just great that stat line was tonight.
Al Horford has just been a blessing for this team since he came back from Oklahoma. His presence has just been, he's the mentor of this team, and you can tell that this is one of his come around pushes that he doesn't know how many more years are guaranteed, and he still does not have that NBA championship. If there is anyone hungrier for a championship on the court, it's Al Horford this year, and he's going to do whatever it takes to bring in this title. Sure, we want to talk about giving him more of a benefit of a doubt load management, but this is one of the most important years of his career, and he is going into, what is it, year 18 or so. He's poised, playing, being able to stretch the floor for this team, and the fact that when Kristaps comes back, he can coincide with Kristaps on the court is going to bring a huge push from this team, and I really can't see anyone else taking up that role for the Celtics.
Al Horford, it's all about him making the outside shot most of the time. Because really, if you look at his stat line, I believe he was, what was he, 6 of 8 on the night, and I think he was 4 of 6 from 3. Is that correct?
Yep.
I'm just guessing here. I actually don't have the numbers in front of me, but Al Horford, if he's making a couple threes, his point total looks a lot different than what his average may be. And typically, he might take 1 or 2 or 3, 4 shots inside the arc, but he's typically shooting around 6 threes a game, and if he sees a couple of those go in, that's really when we see his impact go through the roof. And I thought he hit threes in just very crucial moments of the game tonight when the Celtics went on their runs. And it really felt like when the blizzard or the avalanche was falling on top of the Chicago Bulls, Al Horford was just there to kick more rocks over onto them. And that's really what it felt like from my perspective every time Al Horford hit a shot. And the fact he's playing at this level at the age in which he's at, 2 years ago, we were on this show. 2 years ago, we were on this show discussing Al Horford's age and impact. And yes, his impact may have been a little bit higher 2 years ago with the Celtics, but the fact he's still making this level of impact, still a little bit lower than maybe 2 years ago, but still very high for the Celtics amidst Kristaps Porzingis' absence. He's putting up one of the more impressive NBA careers of this generation, and I think when he's done, more people will be talking about his longevity in the NBA, because if you look around the league, how many guys from 2008 are still around? How many names can we really name? Kevin Durant, LeBron James, Al Horford. How many more guys?
PJ Tucker.
Curry, PJ Tucker, not Chris Paul. Not a lot of names. Can you even fill out a whole roster? Probably not.
No.
And Al Horford is on our team. He's making an impact at his age, and I think the veteran aspect of him being around and the impact he's made in the clubhouse over the years as well on the Jays and whoever's came through Boston throughout our runs to the Eastern Conference Finals, to the finals. Al Horford, he's one of the more underrated personalities and players in the NBA. And tonight, it was so great to see him have this performance, this great Al Horford classic performance in a game where the Celtics, they came out in a resilient fashion and advanced to the in-season tournament. He is a part of this Celtics history where we're going to eventually look back on this date and go, wow, the Celtics came into the day minus 22, needing to beat the Bulls by more than 23, needing this to happen. Al Horford had this big performance. Jaylen Brown had a big performance, and the Celtics were able to pull out that win. Al Horford, for all the historic moments the Celtics have seen under Al Horford, this is just another one of those tonight.
It doesn't feel like he's lost a step. I don't know if that's crazy to say, but when you see a performance like this tonight, you're just kind of like, Vucevic is no easy matchup. That's a quality big man, and I do think Chicago has its own problems to figure out, because quite frankly, that's a much more talented roster than how they've been playing. And I honestly think just that core group of guys since Alonso's been out, and then you were in the middle of the road all year last year. I think they're just worn out of playing with each other. And I think so. Again, you take it with a grain of salt tonight, David. But I mean, it looks like Al hasn't lost a step. It really does.
Yeah, and I guess I should apologize because on the Knicks post-game show, I said on here that Father Time was hitting Al Horford, and I know Anna Horford crashed this show last year, and she's not very happy with one of our co-hosts making a comment about her brother, which can't blame her for that. She's defending her bro, but yeah, I don't really know too much about that whole story. Justin was just talking about that, so I'll have to be filled in on this after the show. But yeah, at the time, I stood by what I said. Al Horford, was off to a little bit of a slow start statistically to start the season. Also straying, going back to the end of last season as well. I think up until that Knicks game, he was only like a 30% shooter from three. So, I thought that these were the last good days we'd seen of Al, but I'm happy to have been proven wrong. He's been a great spark plug lately. As you said, Seamus, just a typical Horford stat line tonight, 16, 9, and 6. Just a great playmaker, even as a big man, just great defensive presence against guys who you would think would present mismatches against him. So, yeah, it's just a pleasure to see. The debate will be had once he retires if Al Horford 2.0 is better than Al Horford 1.0. But, I mean, it's just been awesome to have him with the Celtics all these years. And, even just stuff outside the stat line, just the energy he provides. Like, I even saw it in person when I went to that first playoff game last year against Atlanta. He stole the ball, I think, in like the second half, and then they fouled him in transition. And he was running over to my side of where I was sitting. He was just like firing up the crowd, punch in the air. I'm like, all right, this guy gets it. Like, this is a true leader in the locker room. So it's just, we got to enjoy these days while we can. I mean, I don't know where Al Horford is going to go down in the Boston sports athletes lore, but, it's just a pleasure watching him play. And it's cool seeing those moments too, where, he blocked a shot to his son on Sunday, and then he sent 3 shots into the sun tonight. So,
and it's great too because he doesn't need to do this. This 16 points with 2 steals, 3 blocks is way more than what we're asking for Al. And again, I can't stress it enough how great he's been and how great he's going to continue to be. And Porzingis is going to miss it. Maybe if you want my guess, I'm no team doctor, but I think he'll be out against Philly, and then you'll see him in that first in-season tournament game. I think they'll slot him back in. He was in, I believe he was doing a little shoot around, a little workout before the game started. So that's good news. But yeah, Al's been awesome. Another aspect of the Celtics I want to talk about, guys, is the bench. Because, man, oh man, we owe Luke Cornett an apology. And again, on the stat sheet, on the box score, it wasn't great. It wasn't phenomenal. 4 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 blocks. 3 blocks is great. But it feels, and you guys know me, since I've started this whole thing, my whole spiel has been, if you're not scoring in an NBA game, how are you contributing to basketball? How are you contributing to what's going on in the game? Luke Cornett has been a phenomenal bucket getter recently. He's been scoring 8 points, 10 points off the bench the past couple games. Tonight, the opportunities, the looks weren't in there down low. So what does he do? Comes out when he's playing stellar physical defense. So, Seamus, Luke Cornett, briefly, what has been so great about this man?
Well, to me, he's more integrated with this team than the first couple of games, and I think that probably goes for everybody on the team. I mean, if you really think about the preseason and the first couple of games, this product of the Celtics definitely looked more discombobulated than it looked tonight. And I think, too, especially with guys playing more consistent minutes, Luke Cornett, he didn't play a couple of games last week, and we were kind of crying out for him a little bit to play. And over the last 2 or 3 games, he's seen a couple more minutes. And in those minutes, he's made the most of his opportunity. And Luke Cornett has always been a talent in which hasn't had to do too much out on the floor, but be a solid physical big man, either setting screens, offensively rolling to the rim, rebounding, and just being physical with other big guys on other teams. You know, we think about in terms of the Chicago Bulls, Vucevic, Andre Drummond. Those are two very big bodies out there. That's a perfect opportunity to throw Luke Cornett out there just to be physical. And I thought tonight, I think every night too, he always looks like he's sweating more than everyone else. I don't know. Somebody has to ask Luke Cornett about this. I don't know if it's the hair. If it's just he
something's got
tries
in
so
him.
hard. I mean, it seems like he is just drenched every time he is out on the floor. And I don't know if that's just me, but that's what I see. And Luke Cornett, you can't really say too many bad things about him and his game just in general. For me, I know a lot of people do want to pick on him every now and then, but I just know, some guys play their roles. They're not going to be, a starter in the league or be a star player, but if you can be a bench guy, come in and play your role the way a team needs you to play your role, that's just as valuable as somebody, in the starting lineup playing their role, because at the end of the day, everybody on the team has to do their role to win a championship. And Luke Cornett, in these absences of Kristaps Porzingis, we don't know how many more there will be. But in the absences, the fact we have Luke Cornett to lean on a little bit, and he's answering the question of, do the Celtics, do they need to add another big man down the road? I think the Celtics might be looking more to add a bigger body or another ball handler maybe down the road. Maybe not so much a big, because of how well Luke Cornett has played as of late. But moving forward, we'll have to see how the lineups look, how much time Porzingis does miss, and if Luke Cornett can sustain this nice little run that he's on.
I think that prior to the year, it was a concern. It was all of our biggest concerns. We came on here during the preseason. We said it's too big of a. I said it. I'll admit it. Take it with my chest. I said it's too big of a year to have Luke Cornett being your third string a center on this basketball team. You know that Porzingis is going to be out probably at least right around that. He'll play 62, 65 games, and we're happy with that. And then you got Al Horford, who won't be playing on second nights of back-to-back. So it was a worry for me, was that big man. But I'll tell you what, he shut me up, and he shut me up real fast. Because Seamus, you nailed it. He's just contributing. He's doing something when he's in the game. He's getting to the basket. He's getting some good, easy, efficient looks. And on defense, he's not always there, but he is there when he needs to be. And I'm going to tell you what, for as much bashing as I've given Joe Mazzulla recently, he's done a hell of a job utilizing Luke Cornett, because the ability to notice and recognize where Luke Cornett succeeds in putting him in positions to succeed is awesome. I'd wish he'd do it with our star players a little bit more. However, he puts Luke Cornett in these positions that has just been absolutely it's easy. He's making his life really easy, and credit goes to Luke Cornett. And another bench guy I think that we have to talk about, Sam Hauser, man. This guy, again, I was skeptical on Sam at the start of the year. I loved him coming in from Virginia. I was all in on Sam. I mean, Seamus, you probably remember that back in the day, the 2022 season, where we were all like, we need a shooter. And, I was saying Sam Hauser was sitting in your G League team. But tonight, guys, he shot 2 of 12 from the floor, or 3 of 12, excuse me. You'd figure normally Sam Hauser shoots 3 of 12. He has a bad game. But how about this? Double-digit rebounds, Franco, for Sam Hauser. I mean, how big time is that for the C's?
The versatility's kicking in for him. I mean, at the beginning of the season, I thought, and don't get me wrong, I thought that we were going to be seeing a lot more of O'Shea Brissett and Lamar Stevens taking more of that role and being that versatile small forward to be subbing in with JT and JB when they need a rest. But Sam Hauser has been complimentary whenever you want him on the court. We could have him in with our starters. We could have him in with our rotation players. He's just that consistent. And the fact that he's been adding to his game 4 dunks this season so far, and I think the stat was that's the most in his career. He's starting to cut to the paint, and this team just loves feeding him. And that was evident last year when everyone was just cheering to feed Hauser in the corner. He's cemented his role into this rotation, and it's going to be exciting when he sometimes is going to I feel comfortable with him stepping up into the starting lineup.
Right.
When on nights that any one of our star players are out, any of our starting players are out.
It's again, it feels like the bench. I don't have a bad word to say about a single word to say about the bench. That's how great they've been. From Pritchard to Hauser, Cornette, Al coming off the bench, they've been great. They really have. They stepped up. I think Tatum and Brown and those guys are still finding their rhythm. Again, we give teams 25 games. They've looked really, really good these past couple. But let's talk about the in-season tournament here, because I do think it would be crazy for us not to touch on it before this show ends. I'm not going to lie. I'm still a little confused. So I don't know if any of you guys know this. So we play who? We play Indiana at home or so what's the deal here?
Are we going to Indiana?
Honestly, at this
Does anyone know?
after all the scenarios from earlier, right, that we had to go through and be like, okay, let's just piece this all out. All I know is how the Celtics got in. After that, who they're playing, where they're going, what they're seated
on Twitter.
Just go wherever the NBA sends us. Just go. We got in. I don't know, because I mean, seriously, after all the scenarios earlier, I have no idea. But hey, look, we won the group.
Yes,
we literally won the group. We won the group.
And you know what's interesting? You know what's interesting about this, though? Something I've noticed is I thought it was interesting, right? How you have 3-3-1 teams, and the Celtics, that one loss, right? It's just interesting to see this point differential aspect that they added to it. I think I understand it, because at the end of the day, if you have a 3-way tie like we did now, you can't go head-to-head matchup, because Orlando beat us, but Orlando lost to Brooklyn, I believe, and then Brooklyn lost to us, so like there really wouldn't be a way to figure that whole ordeal out without the point differential. But I mean, I don't know how I feel about it, because I thought it's a fun aspect. I think this is what my final take on the in-season tournament is gonna be. I think I'm gonna love the bracket aspect of it, but I'm not gonna like the race to get in with the whole, hack a Drummond and then, scoring, having your starters in with the last 2 minutes, stuff like that. I think it gets a little excessive almost. But I'm all in on this on the tournament bracket part. I think it's gonna be great. And hell, I'm all in. I want to win this thing, right? Like, why? I don't want to be the chumps that come up short.
I'm personally excited that Joe Mazzulla decided we're gonna win this thing. Just let's go win this thing right now, because I don't like the aspect of the team rolling over like the Los Angeles Clippers or something and going, well, yeah, we're paid. We're going for the championship.
Right.
But you haven't done anything. Like you haven't won a championship yet. So even all these other teams, who we're talking about, the young and up and coming teams, the Orlandos, the Indianas, the Oklahoma Cities, we're like, oh yeah, they're up and coming. They're competitive. They're hungry. Well, eventually the Celtics, if they don't win it this year, they don't win it next year, and even next year, potentially, they're going to have to compete with all of these teams. So why do the Celtics hold this pedestal of oh yeah, their team is, they're going for the finals. They don't need this in-season tournament. No, stay competitive. Stay competitive. If this is an implemented thing within the schedule, why not go out and take it? And Drew Holiday kind of said it at half. They try to beat any team by as many each game. They try to beat a team by as many as they can each game. The only difference is you're talking about, Rob, philosophically, teams do change a little bit. We were up by 30. There was no doubt we were winning that game.
And we're hacking
we
a
do
Drummond.
if we do look at the lead tracker here real quick for this game, nice. No dips today outside of surrendering the lead a little bit there in the first quarter, which is not unusual at that early stage of the game. Not too many dips for the Celtics in there. Maybe a little bit there in the third quarter. Might want to clean that up a little bit, but not really anything to be concerned about at all. But you see the Celtics certainly went for it, up 35 at one point. And like I said, philosophically, it kind of changes a little bit from going night to night, beating a team by as much as you can. Tonight, the Celtics really did that because they left their starters in the fourth quarter. I personally like the competitive aspect of it. And, I don't know. I guess these games do mean something to some degree because, you think about the NBA Finals, right? Think about the NBA Finals. What does that mean? What does that ultimately mean? It means an extra check for players, right? Number one. And number two, it's legacy. Because at the end of the day, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, they're still going to walk away with $40+ million, $35+ million on the season. They're going to get a game check every single game. And at the end of the day, we are looking at the NBA Finals, which holds really the same meaning as the in-season tournament. It's just a goal to shoot for. It's a goal to shoot for. It's like, hey, we're not just running an operation where we're just bringing in revenue every single game, which is ultimately what the NBA just is. It's every single game they're just bringing in more revenue. And at the end of the road, they've done their work. Like the NBA Finals don't really mean anything for 28 other teams, obviously, but it's just a goal to work towards. And I'm glad to see that within this newly created goal, the Celtics actually went for it and didn't roll over. And I'm so glad that was the implemented mentality and not, we're good on this one.
So I have the scenarios. Shout out to NBC Sports Boston right here. This is what we're looking at here. So Boston is the 3 seed in this whole knockout tournament thing. In the knockout round, we are going to play on the road in Indy. That will be the quarterfinals. Milwaukee will be playing New York. That will be hosted in Milwaukee. The winner of Boston versus Indiana will head to Las Vegas to play the winner of Milwaukee, New York. The winner of that matchup in Vegas will play the Western Conference side of the bracket champion. So, guys, we could be potentially looking at here an early Celtics-Bucks semifinals / Eastern Conference Finals preview in-season tournament edition. Again, look at it how you want to look at it, but some interesting, new, and fun aspects here was what we saw tonight for this in-season tournament game against Chicago. The Boston Celtics were victorious 124-97 tonight at home. Guys, before we close off the show, we got any final remarks, statements, anything you want to say before we end it here?
On to Indiana. These are the teams that I would be worried about in this in-season tournament, which are the New York Knicks or the Indiana Pacers. Those are two of the prime example teams that we actually probably used in shows prior talking about this in-season tournament of them being threats in this.
Right.
They are extremely hungry for this because they haven't had that taste in a while. So it's going to be these games are going to be really challenging ones coming up, and we'll be doing some good coverage of it. Maybe watching watch-alongs. Who knows?
Yeah, I can't believe the Celtics are. They get to play on Indiana's crazy blue court.
Right.
They were the first court to start the tournament. It was the first court we saw, and that one was a little bright. It was one of the brighter blue ones.
Right.
But Celtics playing the Indiana Pacers, this one should certainly be interesting. The Celtics dropped 155 on them the last time they faced, and that was just a couple of weeks ago.
but they'll be
Pacers were
healthy.
missing the Pacers were missing a couple of players that day, so this time around
Halliburton.
should be a little bit different circumstances as well. We know the Indiana Pacers, they want to grab this in-season tournament title, and I will say too about the in-season tournament, great idea. I know everybody is praising it, but I want to give my individual praise to the in-season tournament as well, because this was a tremendous idea. It's a Tuesday night in the NBA. We just blew out the Bulls, and the game pretty well mattered all the way down to the final seconds.
Right.
And we were even watching another matchup in which we typically really wouldn't care about too much, the Nets and the Raptors. And although they are in our division, not two teams we're really necessarily worrying about typically. And there's a lot of scoreboard watching on a Tuesday night, whereas a normal, I don't want to say normal because it's not normal anymore, although it will be in January, February, and March going ahead now, is those Tuesday nights, it's not going to be as fun. Those Friday nights, it's not going to be as fun in the NBA, seeing blowouts and point differential and tracking all of that. I know some people may feel a certain way about that, but I still think it's a tremendous idea just for the fact we're actually watching something and paying attention to something that meaningful
Right.
To at least us fans this Tuesday, and not just regular Tuesday in the NBA.
Right.
Yeah, just a fun one tonight, as I talked about earlier. Just a solid team effort. Not to take away from obviously advancing to the in-season tournament, which is great, but just continuing to dominate the season, moving to 14-4 was great. Even though I said at the beginning of the show, more than 50% of our shots were from three. I just loved our shot selection still, even, driving to the lane. Quick shout out to Jaylen Brown too. He had a couple crazy layups where, we all love Jaylen, but it's like, as soon as he's dribbling through traffic, it's like, oh no, it's going to be a turnover. Right. And he turned those into scores. So that was awesome to see. A lot of great backdoor cuts tonight too, from JB himself and JT as well. So I just love the playmaking. And, we obviously have Indiana to look forward to in the in-season tournament, but before that, we have Philly this Friday. So, hopefully we can get another win over Philly and keep this train rolling in the right direction.
Yeah, I think these games are going to be really good for this team. Early on, it will put this new group into high-intensity, high-pressure environments, big crowds, big games. This team hasn't played together in any big game, really, right? You saw Milwaukee and Philly, but that's not a big game. So it'll be cool to see, how they respond and how they play when there's something on the line, when there's a trophy on the line. I'm excited. I'm not going to lie. This is what the tournament was all about. Is this knockout round? Is this, win in advance, one and done NBA basketball? It's not something you see, but it's pretty cool. So again, guys, thank you so much for joining us on this Tuesday night here on that Celtics Talk Weekly. I'm Rob. Next to me is Franco. Below me is David. And right diagonally down below is Seamus, Zarlingo, guys. We'll have you covered here back on Friday night post-game for the Celtics versus Philly. That will be in Boston at TD Garden. Again, the Celtics walked away with a big-timed 124-97 victory. Guys, until